Good evening, Burbies. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us on Alliance for the Move. It's the first program we're having for this beautiful 2022. And we want to start off by wishing you good health. In fact, today's discussion is going to be on health. So we want to wish you good health. Of course, I want to wish you prosperity in whatever way or form you want it to come. And I want to wish you more happy moments. Having said that, I want to ask Kemraj. Kemraj, welcome to our program. Kemraj Ramjatan, Member of Parliament. Kemraj, give us some greetings to start off tonight's program.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy, and I'm glad to be here again. We had a 2 weeks, what you call hiatus, in which we were celebrating more or less the holiday season, and I really enjoyed myself, and I hope that a number of, everybody out there did the same. Of course, from the comments I was getting, it was not as if it was very, very nice out there. A lot of people have their challenges and so on. But notwithstanding, I would like to tell you that the Guyanese Christmas season and holiday is the best in the world. You know how many people in Canada, because of what happened with the snow in their backyards, and in America and half of North America, literally in snow, they didn't really enjoy it. But of course, we are here with a green, so much green that we did enjoy it. And of course, 2022, I hope that everybody is going to be of the best of health, and of course, as much as part of it, enjoyable and so on. But as a politician, I would like to say that it is going to be an extremely challenging year. I am very optimistic that we're going to have a better year than 2021. And hopefully that is realized by the time 31st of December 2022 comes around. Uh, COVID is going to be with us here, and the COVID spikes, as we are going to later learn from the famous Dr. Somar, a man who is on the front line, is going to be very, very disastrous for us if we don't take care. Apart from that, too, we will have lots of other issues at a parliamentary level, issues about cost of living, issues about Gaisuko that is very worrisome for Barbicians. And we are going to be there, Barbicians, giving you a perspective that is vastly different from the PVP, that is going to ensure that you understand what is happening, that you're educated, as we have always tried to do, on the issues of the day so that we could move this country along. There will be disagreements, vast disagreements, but it is a thing that is part and parcel of democracy. And we will show the better way out. Of course, if you don't want to believe it, well, fine, but at least understand, listen, and appreciate us for doing what we are doing. I believe that a lot of Barbicians are now very much disenchanted and disaffected by what has happened. But we will give the reasons as to why that has happened and also explain a better way out. So, a happy new year to all of you. Best of health, best of happiness, and of course, take in these talks that we will have on every Saturday night to the extent of appreciating why we are saying what we are saying.
Thank you very much, Kemraj. So, viewers, I'm very excited to let you know that this evening we have joining us is Dr. Rohan Somar. And you will remember that Dr. Somar has been on our program before. He is an emergency room specialist, a doctor, studied at Mount Sinai, very well qualified. We've had a technical issue in having Dr. Somar join us in video. So, what I'm doing is we are hoping that he will be able to join us through the audio stream. And I know Kamraj is going to let me know if we have problems with that audio. But in the meantime, let me say, Dr. Somar, welcome. And we hope that you are hearing us. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Kathy. And again, sorry for the technical difficulty with the internet connectivity. But first, let me say Happy New Year to everyone and look forward to having a discussion on that which is upon us all right now in a very serious way, which is the COVID-19 infection, mainly the Omicron variant.
Thank you, Doc. Kamraj, can I just ask you to confirm that you can hear Dr.
Oh,
Sumar
yes, I am
clearly?
hearing him very loud and clear, very distinctly. And
Wonderful.
Doc, I hope that you're hearing me because, of course, the Barbicians from especially Bushlot Village want to hear that voice of this very prominent doctor that they also love and respect and revere there in Bushlot, especially the family members. So give us your take on all of this Omicron as Kathy will ask the questions and so on
Sure.
and
So
moderate.
really, I wanted to start off by reminding our viewers that in Guyana today we have 41,418 current COVID-19 cases. Believe it or not, unfortunately, we have lost 1,060 Guyanese persons due to COVID-19. And I'm reminding you of these figures because it just shows how urgent and how critical this situation is. We know it is a worldwide pandemic. In fact, worldwide, there are more than 281 million cases. And unfortunately, more than 5 million persons all across the world have passed away, have died, given this dreaded disease. Now, I want to bring us down to Region 5 and Region 6 because Doc is going to be giving us some tips on what we need to be doing to ensure that we keep safe. Now, unfortunately, in Region 3, we've had 5,401 cases. In Region 4, even more alarming. I know we have a larger population in Region 4. We've had 19,702 cases. In Region 5, doing better than Region 6, 1,531 cases. And Region 6, 4,091 cases. So, Doc, you of all persons, because you're dealing with it every day in the emergency room in the hospital in New York, can you give us an update on what's the current status with COVID-19? And most importantly, what do we need to know as citizens about this new variant, the Omicron?
Sure, Kathy. As you mentioned, the numbers are staggering. In fact, the COVID-19 infection, since it started or came upon us, it's actually over 304 million people worldwide have been affected, with over 5.5 million succumbing to it. And we've been dealing with this now for the last 20 months or so. But what we saw in the last 2 months, emanating initially from Africa and spread throughout the world, the Europe, UK, United States, and other parts right now, is this new variant called Omicron. Now, it is multiple times more infectious than any of the other variants we saw before. While the other variants were infectious and it became more and more infectious as the variants mutated from alpha to beta to delta most recently, they were all also very deadly, leading to almost 5 million deaths worldwide. This Omicron variant has some peculiarity about it. One, it is multiple, almost 10 times more infectious than delta, and it'll rip through a population wherever it lands in rapid order. I'm talking to the order of a tsunami or a massive hurricane passing over a population. And that timeline is usually going to be around 6 weeks to 2 months. It will tear through the population, infecting almost everyone in the population will get more than likely will get exposed to Omicron, and it will cause its havoc, if you will, ranging from mild, moderate, severe, and very severe disease. Now, the key thing for us to understand is the best defense we have to prevent us from becoming ill or seriously ill requiring hospitalization and ICU care and ventilation and possibly dying from this is to make sure we're vaccinated fully and particularly get your booster. That is perhaps the most important thing we can do to protect ourselves from suffering the serious impact of this disease. In addition to that, masking is going to be critical for all of us in any community, whether you're indoors or outdoors, because as I mentioned, this virus, this mutated virus, Omicron, is multiple more infectious than all others combined. There's a whole host of other strategies that I want to go through as to how we can protect ourselves from this. But very important to introduce out there that this virus is going to hit its community very hard, severely, when it's in a matter of 6 weeks to 2 months.
Thank you, Doc. We have the same urgency here in Guyana, and I know that you will be aware, but again, for our viewers, I want them to know that on Wednesday, in the previous 24 hours, we had 788 cases, new cases in 24 hours. That was on Wednesday. On Thursday, in 24 hours, we had amassed 967 new cases. And of course, by yesterday, Friday, in the previous 24 hours, we had another 844 cases. So it is moving rapidly through our population, and of course, it's worrying. I noticed in reading an article today that the World Health Organization said that we could not describe the Omicron as being mild. And I think they were touching on that fact because so many people feel that because because it doesn't appear and the symptoms are not as harsh as COVID-19,
the Delta
original
variant
strain, they figure that it's not as dangerous. But as you have said, it's moving faster. Persons can get the virus just from more rapid exposure. So, Doc, continue your discussion on what we need to be doing to take this seriously.
Thanks, Kathy. Just a comment back on the perception of whether this disease is mild or not. Mm-hmm. This disease will affect any human being that gets transmitted to via air. It doesn't matter whether you're a child, a young, a teenager, a youngster, an adult, or an older adult. As long as you're a human being and it gets in contact with your body, it will infect you. Now, the history that we're seeing is it rises and spreads in the population rapidly, and as it does so, the sheer volume of folks it affects will tell you that the amount of people who get sick and seriously ill will likely overcome the healthcare delivery system in any local community, whether you're in the United States as advanced as we think we are here, or in the UK, or in Europe, or China, or Brazil, or Africa, certainly in Guyana. The sheer number of people that it's affecting will cause the entire infrastructure, for most part, as well as the healthcare infrastructure, to be severely stressed literally to the brink, and we're experiencing that in the United States. For example, you mentioned the last couple of days skyrocketed number. The slope of the infection is almost vertical. We always think about a slope as a slant line, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, 30 degrees, and whatnot. When you start tracking this infection, you're looking at almost like a vertical spike, and the height of that spike will be until it affects, if not 90-95% of the population. Now, again, I want to mention, as it infects as many people that it will infect, the ones who will tend to do better are the ones, again, who are vaccinated They're full series, whether it's 1 dose or 2 dose, depending on vaccine you have, and if you're boosted. If you're not vaccinated nor boosted, your chances of having severe illness from disease is 20-fold compared to folks who are vaccinated. The numbers are staggering in the United States, just similar to what you guys experienced in Guyana in the last couple of days. You guys are in the just beginning phase. In the last couple of weeks, we went from a baseline with Delta about 50,000 cases a day to the other day we were over 1 million cases a day.
Wow.
And that's just partially reported because all the home tests that folks are doing every day are not part of that stat. So you can imagine the spike to come in Guyana, because Guyana, as last I checked, has close to about 40% of its population is fully vaccinated, actually 37.73. So that means the opportunity, unfortunately, this virus has to folks that it likely will plow through. It's a huge number. Almost 60% of Guyanese population are yet to get affected with this virus. Now, what does that mean to you all when it happens like this? Because of the rapidity, the fastness of this infection, it's gonna implode almost within the next couple of weeks or a month or so. And when it affects so many people in the population, you can imagine at all sectors, folks are going to be affected, and they're going to be sick, and they're going to need to be offline from work. And this will include your doctors, your nurses, your police person, anyone in the front line of duties, irrespective of the industry, will get affected. And we as a society or a community need to figure out how we deal with our normal day-to-day course of activities with so many folks being affected at the same time. If it was straddled or scaled or staggered, if you will, we could be in a better position to manage it on a rolling scale. But this thing's going to hit like a tornado anywhere it lands.
We understand that clearly. In fact, just a couple of days ago, we had an alarming announcement that I don't remember the figure, but a large number of our health personnel, doctors and nurses at the Georgetown Public Hospital had actually contracted COVID. So we know that the challenge is there. And it's good to remind ourselves that at the moment, we only have that one hospital at Lillian Dal, which means, as Doc is saying, folks, if this gets worse and people have to go to the hospitals, we're going to put a tremendous strain on our medical systems and the resources that we have. Now, I think this brings us to an important point, and Doc touched on it, the fact that so many Guyanese still have not taken the vaccine or in recent time the booster. Let me start off by saying that I am fully vaccinated and all members of my family, and I'm happy to say that last week I also took my booster. So I don't know, Kemraj, I'd love to bring you in.
I did. I did myself.
Yeah, Kemraj, can I ask you to tell us about yourself and what would you say to Guyanese that are still hesitant? Can you share some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I have already made 3 commentaries at the Ministry of Health. Dr. Frank Anthony called me in, and I'm very supportive of the efforts, although I think that the government can do lots more. At least at this point in time, they have to get this education aspect right, and we're going to ask Doc on that question too. But also to start making some more infrastructure in and around the regions that will take care as a kind of a quasi-medical facility, not as very best as the Lillian Dal Institution, but in kind of medical facilities that can take this thing to the people in the various regions and so on. But I have been asking on these programs our Guyanese to start living the very responsible life. COVID is going to be with us, from all my learning from it and all that Doc is saying, for a very long time. It is not going away. And by the time you think that you control it, there will be mutations that will come in the form of some other variant that is going to put the very, poor countries like Guyana, with some other mutation coming, and because of international travel and so on, it's going to arrive here. So we have to get responsible livelihoods, as it were. People must wear the mask. People must try to be social distancing, but also ensure that this ignorance, in my view, and I say it's ignorance, when people are giving a lot of disinformation that the science is wrong and this and that, and they're plucking out from the Facebook and sending to our chat lines a whole set of disinformation and fake news about how, the Americans have this thing to only control the population, and one set of nonsense. It is not going to help us. It is going to only mash up the situation and confuse all of us, to the extent then that you are going to have greater numbers of people suffering this infection. So we have to take the information from valid, reliable sources like Dr. Somar, like the Ministry of Health, the PAHO, the WHO, and things like that, the CDC of America. And so also utilize these institutions to get the reliable information. And of course, as I said, social distancing, wearing a mask, and not being in crowds and things like that.
Doc, what would you say? Doc, what would you say to persons that are still skeptical regarding the efficacy and the safety of these vaccines? How could you share on that?
Excellent question. But before I talk about that, I just want to follow up on what Kimraj mentioned. For all of us, as we're going to be dealing with this tsunami that's going to come upon, especially in Guyana because it's starting, key are a couple things that you can do, all of us can do to protect ourselves. One, you got to get good nutrition, good hydration. Two, critical, wear a proper mask. And when I say a proper mask, look at the mask that your public officials are wearing. I'll talk about the Minister of Health, who's a good friend, and we have been communicating on strategies, and the programs that they have are good programs, and they're working. They have a good, robust way of tracking who's vaccinated and who's getting infected and what have you. The mask ought to be a good fitting mask. That's the most important thing. The ones that are good fittings they got these KN95. I wish I was on video to demonstrate them. It's those ones that fit around your face. It's not a rectangular mask. It fits around your face with different variation around your nose, either flat or like a bird's beak. Those are the KN94s and the KN95s. You can get those. They're readily available through Amazon or whatever local medium you may have. And the best one would be what we call an N95. That's what we wear in the hospital. They look similar to the KN95s, but they're more robust in terms of the fitting and their filtration rate. The regular mask, the rectangular one, the surgical mask, they will work. However, if you see when you wear them on the side of your face, they are almost like a hole or opening. That will cause the virus to cause you to get infected. So if you can't get your hand on a KN94 or a KN95 or N95, the surgical mask, but if you have that, double mask, if you will. Now, getting back to the question you asked, Kathy, these vaccines and the efficacy and safeties of them. Let me put it quite simply and bluntly. The vaccines that we have that's in distribution right now throughout the world, and there are several. There are probably about 9 or 10 vaccines. All of them have been shown to be extremely safe. Whether you're talking of mRNA, Pfizer, Moderna, J&J, AstraZeneca, vaccine made from Sputnik, Chinese, they've been very safe overall compared to first effect you're going to from virus if you were to get the virus. In terms of efficacy, they vary from those that are not good, efficacious, i.e. the ones, the Chinese vaccine, versus those who are very, very good. Pfizer, Moderna, J&J, AstraZeneca, they all have very good safety and efficacy profile. In fact, we talked about the amount of, one thing I should tell you, rather, the amount of these vaccines have been given to the population in the world is over billions. Billions of vaccines have been given, and they have served to help curtail the severe illness that the different variants of virus causes, and death. Without those vaccines, at this rate in the pandemic, we probably would have seen, we talked about 5.5 million deaths so far, probably 3, 4, 5 times that already, had we not have any of these vaccines available. Right now, I'm alive, dealing with Omicron in the front line in my emergency room because of the vaccine. I am fully vaccinated and boosted, and because of that, I am able to use my PPE and go and see patients in the ER who are infected at various degree of Omicron. Thank God my PPE works, the proper mask, and the vaccine is helping to keep me from getting severely ill, as well as it has been doing with everyone who's in that category to get serious. So the vaccine, long story short, are very safe and they work. Literally, they work. So anyone who will tell you otherwise, please listen to your public health officials, folks that you trust in the healthcare community. That's the reality. All this controversial misinformation, disinformation about X, Y, and Z is literally nonsense in my view.
Yeah.
From speaking from someone who's seeing this front line day in and day out.
Thank you for clarifying that. Now, Doc, I want to ask a question that might be very specific to some of our viewers, because as you know, we've had a range of vaccines in Guyana, and some of them we've been reading internationally online may not have as much efficacy as another. But would you agree, or could you explain whether at least getting the booster, we have the Pfizer booster in Guyana now, the booster, I think my understanding would be key, because even if you had a vaccine before that had a lower efficacy, the booster is going to give you that extra edge at this point in time. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So with vaccines and booster, yes, it is true that different vaccines have different efficacy rate. I mentioned some of those before. The ones that have excellent efficacy rates are the mRNA vaccine, Pfizer, Moderna. There's only 2 on the planet. And then you have the adenovirus vaccines, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, and so on, which I think you guys have available in Ghana. So if you were just stick on those 4 alone, we have a lot of information on the safety and efficacy of them. Now, if you had any one of those, there have been good studies that show you can mix and match. Say, for example, you have AstraZeneca and you can't get your booster with an AstraZeneca, a Johnson & Johnson will work, vice versa, or with a Pfizer. Any of the combination of these vaccines to get your boosted level, if you can get your hands on them, get them, period. They all will increase your immunity specifically against Omicron. They all had different efficacy in the previous mutations, Delta and so on. With Omicron, the J&J vaccine booster have shown to be significantly efficacious in the 80%. Same thing with the AstraZeneca, and similarly, and actually a little more robust with Pfizer and Moderna. So any of those 4 vaccines, I'm sure you guys, from the latest information, they may be available to you guys in country. They work, and if you're boosted, you are buying yourself that insurance that will help your body deal with the onslaught of Omicron, wherein likely it will prevent you from being severely ill, meaning that you may need to go to the hospital, or can cause you severe harm from that episode.
Right.
So get your booster, any booster you can get.
Okay. So, viewers, you've heard it from the expert, from the doctor himself. Dr. Somar, I wanted to ask you a bit about the personal responsibility that each and every one of us should have. And I raise this in context of the fact that so many of us could have COVID or Omicron and not have the symptoms. And therefore, once we feel that there's a possibility we have minor symptoms, the responsibility is on us to go and get tested. And also, more importantly, if we are positive, to isolate. And I worry because I know of persons that are taking this very casually. They have the virus, but I don't feel so sick. So, they're going out and about. Could you speak to that issue?
Absolutely, Kathy. And I think I can direct the focus of this part of the discussion to those who are up and about, the young adults, if you will. And with Omicron, as it hits, we're finding that it is you're very contagious the days before you become symptomatic. Let's say hypothetically you get exposed today. Tomorrow, the next day, the first 3 days, you may not feel anything, but by the second or third day, you're probably most infectious because you're going to start feeling some symptoms by the fifth day or so. By then, it is too late. You have already contaminated everyone that you may have came in contact with, which may include, for these young adults, your parent, your grandparent, your aunt, your uncle, your younger brothers and sisters who do not have the opportunity to get the vaccine in Guyana, because I think Guyana, if you have Pfizer, kids now, at least in the United States, up to 5 and above can get the vaccine. I'm not sure the age in Guyana yet. So it behooves those young adults who are mobile all over the place. They're going to work, they're going to a restaurant, they're going to a bar, they're going to a club. As you go to all those places, you can bet that those places, those congregate settings, infection is occurring. And it's spreading, and that's how it spread the fastest it's spread, because you may not be aware that you're infected, but it's spreading. And so, the best thing we can do to mitigate that are: 1, get your vaccine, get your boost. 2, mask, appropriate mask. 3, mitigate any type of exposure in crowds, whether it be indoors. Outdoors, okay, but still no large outdoor cricket matches and whatnot where people are jumping and screaming, at least in the short run until this thing goes. 3, stay as far as you distance yourself from others as much as you can. Proper hand hygiene, and I mentioned hydration and nutrition. And very important for this set of the younger population who are about immobile, look around yourself and your family and try to take care of them. Because grandma and grandpa, uncle and auntie and aji and aja and nani and they may not have the ability, their body, to fight this off, but you may inadvertently give it to them, but without even knowing. Same thing goes for your younger brother and sister. We can talk about schooling and so on later. The spread is occurring with that segment of population who's most mobile. The more you get around, the more likely you're going to spread it. So please, folks, be careful. Wear your mask. If you feel ill, quarantine yourself. And we can talk about the days of quarantine. It's not 10 days. If you're not boosted, you will know how sick you will become by the 6th or 7th day. If you're boosted, by the 5th day, you will declare yourself. By the 7th day, you actually start feeling better. So knowledge about the disease process is going to be critical. But again, think about the folks who are around you and what you can do to help them get through this, because it will likely affect the majority, if not the vast majority of the population.
Mm-hmm. Doc, you mentioned quarantine, and isolation is a word we hear all the time. So could you go into a little more detail on that aspect?
Sure. So when we talk about quarantine and isolation, just to simplify, if you know you have the virus and you know that by having the virus you are contagious, meaning you can give it to someone, the best thing we want that person to do is to stay in isolation. That means stay in a place where you're not exposed to other people in your environment, your family members. Now, what does that mean? Well, stay home. Well, you can stay at home, yes, but if you don't have a home that has, rules or where you can be away from breathing your ear into someone else, it's going to be difficult. And that's why if you have to isolate, try to get to a place where it is truly not exposing others. And to do that, the best way you can do it, have your mask on. Have your mask on when you're walking, when you're sleeping, 24/7, other than when you have to eat or drink, of course. You drop it and do what you need to do. So isolation, ideally, it's in a singular room with facilities until your symptoms resolves, or you test out or you test negative. But a physical room per se for everyone to isolate strategically is not possible, if you will. But when you have to isolate and you know you're positive, put your mask on, try to stay away or as far as you can from your family members, not to get them contaminated.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the other important areas is, of course, diet. And I know that we get a lot of, and sometimes it might be misinformation, but what are the good foods that we should be definitely eating, maybe boosting up, eating a little more of? We hear of zinc as a vitamin and vitamin C. Is that accurate? What information could you share with our viewers on this?
Well, that's a good question. So let's talk about general diet. I mean, the key is what you want to do, and then I may get into trouble for this. I'm going to advise everyone who's listening, hell, eat the crap out of stuff to prepare your body to give it the nutrition and energy that it needs. If that means probably eat to gain about 3 or 4 pounds in the next month, do it. Whatever you can get yourself to eat. Now, that's just basic food to get your body the nutrition and the energy is going to need to take to fight this stuff. Now, augment that enhanced diet, if you will, with a few things. One, vitamin D, 5,000 units a day. I'm sure you guys are able to procure that in your local pharmacy and whatnot. And the reason for vitamin D, it is a good immune booster. And so it'll help your immune system prepare itself to fight the virus as you're going to get exposed to it. Same thing with vitamin C. You want 1,000 units a day for the next 14 to 28 days to help your body fight off the infection. And then there's zinc. You want at least 50 milligrams of zinc. What zinc does is zinc helps your body actually inhibit the viral replication. So when this virus is in your body, like most other viruses, it replicates to almost 1 billion new viruses in short order. The zinc helps your body stop or inhibit that replication. So your viral load becomes less, and then hopefully the degree of sickness is caused minimized as much as possible.
Great. That's really useful information. And thanks for being very specific in, letting us know that we should boost with vitamin D, vitamin C, and of course, zinc and healthy greens. We have a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables and greens in Guyana. Doc, this week, a lot of students went back to school. And of course, up to today, I met a parent who had concerns about sending her child to school. The GTU, the Guyana Teachers Union, actually said a few days ago that in one area there were four students that tested positive, and then there were like 65 teachers that also tested positive for COVID. So we know that this is a challenge. Can you share your thoughts on this disease and school? Should parents be sending their kids to school? And what should they be saying to their children? What should they be sending their child to school with? We know a mask, but could you speak to the whole going back to school issue?
Sure, Kathy. This is a challenging one for all communities, all localities, all governments, if you will. Now, in an ideal world, we all recognize the value of in-person learning for students, not only academic but psychological, sociological, and you name it. The whole milieu of in-person school where students are interacting with their classmates, their teachers, and so on is invaluable for their development, if you will. Now, when you're looking at a state where we have a respiratory infection, if we can have an environment in school where it's safe, and we can have a safe environment in school by having an environment where, one, everyone has to have a mask, wear a mask, a good fitting mask. Students, teachers, custodians, principals, cafeteria workers, everyone in that environment has to have a mask for this environment to be safe. Two, ventilation. Last I know, when I visited, when I was as a little kid, almost all schools have, some of them are open, and a lot of windows, so that's a good thing. Three, if you're able to mitigate distance, if you will. And four, testing. If folks are able to be tested and know that they're not infected, you can have a good, valued education in person. Now, having said that, knowing where I think Guyana is right now, which is in the infancy stage of this tsunami, it is probably likely that you're going to be in a super red zone, super hot, if you will, a state of infection spreading rapidly throughout the population. And it will affect all the students, all the adults, all the elders, as much as possible. And you may not have, you mentioned an example of 43 students and 43 teachers. You will have, so that they're out, those 43 teachers, for example, has to be off for a couple days. I don't know what your requirements are. So imagine that gets compounded throughout the country. You simply may not have teachers because they're all affected at the same time to teach students. So, and two, the students are going to be affected. So you're now in a red zone, I call it, and we're dealing with that in the United States as well.
Yep.
You physically may not be able to have school in person. So what could be done, if possible, remote learning. I don't know if Guyana has the infrastructure to do remote learning from at its different level, whether it be secondary school or primary school. That's one option that's being used in the United States. And if you don't have that infrastructure, then you may have no choice but to have an interruption in school for a short period. My sense is with Omicron, as it spread, as I mentioned before, probably going to be at least 4 weeks, 6 maybe, and the longest 8 the most. May look to an interruption in schooling simply because you may not have the teachers around. Yeah.
Very, very interesting, very useful information. So we say to our parents, make sure that your child is going to school with that mask. Doc, should parents be having a chat with children, and how should they be explaining this to a child?
I know that's an excellent question. But before I answer that question, in the whole idea also of protecting your child to all the parents and the grandparents out there, one way you protect that child is everyone around that child who's eligible for a vaccine, get your vaccine and get your booster. That's the most important thing you can do to protect that child who are not eligible for a vaccine. Two, of course, a mask. And when you're having this conversation with the child, depending on the age and their ability to comprehend a very complex problem, you simply may want to say, listen, there is something that's very dangerous out there, a virus. You may need to explain what a virus is compared to bacteria, but you don't want to get into too detail. You want to keep it as simple as possible, and let them know that this thing can affect everyone and cause sickness, illness in everyone. And the best thing we can do to help protect ourselves is do these things that we talked about and try to hold on until it passes, because it will pass. It's just that we want to make sure it doesn't take out as many people as it needed to before it passed. So as you try to explain it to them how serious it is, also must add that it will pass and there are going to be brighter days ahead. These are the things we need to do now to protect ourselves, to survive and not get too seriously affected by it.
Wow, this has been an excellent conversation with you, Dr. Somar. I don't know whether either you or Kemraj have any other points to make on this. Doc, I don't know if there's anything you might have missed.
Well, look,
the message is simple. One, listen to, and again, as I mentioned, I had conversations with the Minister of Health, and they are doing the best, I think, as they possibly can to provide the vaccination to the population and encouraging good stewardship and behavior with the population. Listen to them. I think they're doing the best they can. And all of us try to get everyone vaccinated and boosted. As you're doing that, everyone should be masking up, whether you're indoors or outdoors. Everybody try to avoid large crowds, especially indoors, bars, nightclubs, restaurants. I'm sorry, those industries going to be sending bad emails and stuff like that, but that's the reality right now. And hunker down until this thing blows over, because it's going to hit. It's hitting already. It's going to get worse before it gets better.
Okay. And then, of course, washing hands and using a sanitizer helps.
Absolutely. Proper hygiene goes without saying.
Okay, Kemraj, I want to let Dr. Somar go. Is there anything you wanted to say to him before? And of course, we'll continue our discussion.
Yeah, no, this is
that folks may have who calls in. Please let me know. I'll be more than happy to respond or send an answer.
Sure. Great.
No, this has been an exceptionally informative and educational program. Doc understands the issue. Doc knows this thing inside out. He's in the belly of the beast, as it were, in the middle of the tsunami there in America. And I'm glad that Barbicians are hearing from their own Barbician, an expert who knows the inside story and the precautions to take. I know lots of Barbicians have had their hesitations and so on, but more and more as these programs are unfolding and on the television, people are listening and watching, I am certain that culture changes will happen. Because, we are only going to enjoy this life and we are only going to enjoy the business of doing what we love when we are healthy. And not to be healthy would mean a lot of unhappiness. And so, Barbicians, please do as Doc has advised. And all the other things too, try as best as possible from other sources and so on, reliable sources, that you make sure that you do the right thing and be responsible in relation to behavior and so on. Don't go touching anybody, even close relatives. Don't, especially if you know, and even when you are aware that some people are infected and don't want to talk about it, you can even telephone in that there are people that might have these infections and let the region or some other medical facilities get to know where these might be from, so that the government can go and do the tracing or surveillance to find out whether indeed these persons have it and they're doing nothing about it, and so on. So thank you very much, Doc. This has been very, very educational for me personally. And I want Kathy, you ask some very important questions. You look like a medical journalist there. Uh,
Indeed.
Well, thank you, thank you. But Doc, let me say thanks again. I think that this was very, very good, and we can't actually see the questions, but I'm sure there are questions in the chat. And I can reassure our viewers that last time round, we sent the questions to Doc, and he did pose some answers, and we put those answers on our Facebook page. So we can do the same. So any questions you have, hit us up on our Facebook page, AFC, Alliance for Change, and we will answer those questions. And Doc, thank you very much. We're going to let you go. Stay warm, because I know you're in a lot of snow right now.
Yeah, we'll let us know. Well, again, thank you guys for having this conversation and discussion with our local communities. And to everyone who is listening, again, best wishes for everyone to stay safe and healthy. This thing is going to hit. Brace yourselves, prepare yourselves, and hope that we all make it through without any severe long-term effects.
Thank you, Doc. Take care.
Take care, guys.
Kamraj, that was very good. And
very, very good.
as our viewers will know, we specifically wanted to start this year with that special message on how important health is, the challenging situation we find ourselves in with COVID and Omicron. Times it has not gotten any easier, it has gotten worse. We went through the numbers. So we ask you to spend time alone with your family at home. Now is not the time to be liming on the seawall or in the marketplace or going out just for going out's sake. You have to be very careful. And one of the things we still don't know are what are the effects, the long-term effects of the Omicron variant, the COVID-19. It varies for persons. So although it may seem as though it's not such a, you don't feel any symptoms, it's like a regular flu. I've heard people that have said that, which is really not a sensible thing to say. But we're saying to you, be safe. Now, Kamraj, we have just a few more minutes. And I know we had a very difficult parliamentary session, the last two sessions. And I think next week's program, we can do a little focus on the bills that were passed, the concerns we had for some of them, and we can examine those issues. But can you also tell us a bit about some of the issues you think we're going to face going into this new year? And of course, if you wanted to touch on some of the issues in the last sitting of Parliament, please feel free.
Yeah,
We've got just
I
about
don't
5
think
minutes.
Barbicians. Yeah. We got a couple of minutes more. I really wanted to indicate to Barbicians that it is important that we start holding accountability and transparency to a higher level from the PPP government. What transpired in Parliament in the last occasion was, something very ugly to begin with. The PPP has proven to us that it doesn't want to hear from civil society. It wants to control the oil monies. And although the civil society sent in a petition signed by 64 prominent Guyanese, although they were pleased by 3 civil society organizations, Article 13, I think Transparency Institute, and another organization, I forgot the name now, they simply wanted to pass the bill that they had as against and repeal the one that we had which outlined lots more transparency and what is called oversight, and had a committee and had also committed to deal with macroeconomic issues that can affect the entire country. They proceeded to have spendings of the oil monies to the extent that it is a vastly different regime from what we had. And immediately I could have seen that, because I understand as soon as we finished the debate, and so, well, not, we didn't have a debate on the natural resource. We had some incidents in Parliament and all of that. But they immediately went and get the assent of Irfan Ali that night time. Next morning, official gazette. Yeah, next day, official gazette, it was published. Because, of course, as you know, Ashni Singh wanted that almost 600 million US dollars, which is in the vicinity of 200 billion Guyana dollars,
Wow.
at his disposal to spend. And you know, even prior to 2015, when they were in government, what they were doing with this money. Barbicians are aware. It's friends, favorites, and families. And it is not going to be, very accountable. I notice Ashni and Bharat are on the video all the time, or the social media all the time, saying that they will still be accountability. That is not true. Once they put that money in their sphere of activity for spending, it will be just like what is happening now with the flood relief. They gone and give a lot of their friends, and the genuine people didn't get any. It's the same thing with COVID relief. And when they changed that act up as against the one that we had, they put in something called emergency spending. So if you get a little flood someplace and so on, they're going to say massive spending must go to regularize that. Big contracts will be given, and a whole host of other things. And so you do not have a kind of a strict spending regime in relation to that. They want to spend a lot of money on sugar. Sugar, as we have been saying, Kathy, you have called it a black hole. I have called it even worse. It is especially important that they don't plunge all of this into that kind of extravagant, non-profitable business, and giving what is called their base support all this money. It has two disastrous effects, as I have said on very many occasions. It will create a dependency syndrome. The work ethic is going to be affected, because people can say every other day now, and then jump on the government. We starving here. Please give us another $250,000. And because they might go out on the road and start demonstrating, Jagdeo and Irfan and them will say, give the people some more money. You got the oil monies there. And that is going to affect them. They're not going to want to plant a baigan and bora in the backyard anymore.
Yeah.
And it has damaging effects for macroeconomic policies too. People will not be forced now by necessitous circumstances to go look for other jobs. And that is a disaster for this country. And we have to spend this money on education, on health, on infrastructure, where everybody
Can benefit.
brown, black, yellow, white, everybody can get a piece of the pie. When you spend it on relief sums and financial emergency or environmental emergency and emergency spending and all of that, that is where they're going to literally buy the votes for the next election in this indirect, vicarious way. And that is what I'm scared about, Kathy. That is why we have to really put our heads down during the course of this coming months, especially in that budget debate. Remember, Ashni brought two budgets. One had $90 billion deficit spending, and the other 110, almost $200 billion. They were spending, although they were not getting revenues.
Yeah.
So this $500 billion US can go towards, offsetting that deficit spending. So they're going to say that they'll come back with balanced budgeting and all of that nonsense. But they're not spending properly. And that's a problem with Ashni and especially Jagdeo. And we feel that it is going to be not for the benefit of the better economics of the country, as Chetty Jagan would call it. Barbicians would know Chetty Jagan, of course, but just for looking good, the imagery, and then it all going down black holes here, there, with this relief, that emergency spending, Gaisuko, and so many other things. And it is going to create massive, what you call disaffection. It is going to create disenchantment, and that kind of resentment when you don't share the pie equally, knowing that we got such a big pie, can cause problems in the streets. And that is my fear. But we will have to be a little more optimistic, hoping that things are going to be better. And we in the AFC are eternal optimists.
We are.
I know we try as best as possible to hope for better. Still in hope, as it because it serves us, well.
Yeah.
Because if we start going down the rabbit hole of hopelessness, that is when it is dangerous. Very, very dangerous.
Well, as we said, in our programs coming up, especially the one next week, we're going to start to look at some of those, the new legislation that was passed that we were not happy with. I mean, when it comes to the National Resource Fund, just to think that we had a structure that had 22 representatives of all kinds of persons in Guyanese society. And they've taken that down to just 3 people making the decision and a board of 9 people chosen by the president. Those are the kinds of concerns. But what we will do in the next 2 weeks is go through some of these issues, because we want people to know what's going on so that you can also make sure that you can stand up and voice your concerns as citizens of Guyana, because we know we all can benefit from the wealth that we have. So we are out of time. I do want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. I actually got a I-95 mask, because I know Doc was referring to it. So folks, if you can get your hands on one of these, this is the kind of mask that you would use if you have to be out in some location where there's lots of people around. If, unfortunately, God forbid, you have to go to the doctor and it might be crowded, then that's the time you would wear one of those masks. I just want to remind you as we close off that you need to be safe. You need to get your vaccine, get your booster. We want you to always wear a mask and to sanitize, to wash your hands, and of course, speak to your children, because we know school is out and you have to let them understand that they need to be extra careful. And believe it or not, our children are very smart. And so once you have that conversation with them, we're confident they too will be on board and will ensure that they keep themselves safe. Kemraj, thank you very much. Our technicians that are helping us tonight, thank you. Dr. Somar, and most importantly, DTV, thank you very much. Have a good week, everybody. Stay safe. Until next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Very good night.